So today I'm going to do a follow-up on that brief teaser we did about the shop and do a much longer overview of the entire space. Welcome to BarrittWorks. There's a lot in this space, and if you saw the teaser, you know that I mentioned it's a very small shop. Many of the things I've done in here won't be all that unique. I've got lots of bins hung on the wall which have individual storage slots for different nuts and screws. Everybody struggles with that. Other things are somewhat unique solutions to making a space this small work. So what I thought I would do is do an overview of the room first, distinguishing it from the table, which in the teaser I called the Omni table, and talk about the Omni table afterward. Today is going to be an overview. I will follow up with detailed videos about some elements of the technology I developed for this that I think someone else might be interested in or might be able to make use of. So let's get started with the room. This room is 19 by 9.5, 180.5 square feet. Now, if you notice over here, there are a lot of pegboards hung in a somewhat unusual fashion. And I did the math on the square footage of pegboards. Pegboards line that wall, and there's pegboards here, and all of these hanging here at the end of the room that have material stored on both sides. So just counting the sides that I use, 486 square feet of pegboards, approaching 3 times the square footage of the room of pegboard space. And the room was used with a more traditional set of shelves here in the end, a workbench, bins, a lot of tools and bins for the first almost a year before I had a chance to get these pegboards. So let me tell you about the pegboards. They are 3 by 6 and they came from our local library. They had been used for years to display the artwork that you could check out from the library. They have a yearly sale of equipment and fixtures and things they're not using anymore. I bought about 80 of these for $1 a piece. Got them home and realized that I wanted to go full on with these. Went back, came home with another set, 16 in total. The way they work is they have on one side pins, heavy duty, about 1 inch in diameter, metal rods that are welded into the frame. And surprisingly, even these pegboards that are just flat to the wall hinge like that because I put the angle iron along the wall as the easiest way to hang the panels. Concrete anchors to put them into the cinder block wall, and created blocks to mount them to the framing on this wall, and created those 2 runs of angle iron so that I could hang this whole library of panels on this wall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Here in the side walls, I just made brackets on this side. I never intended these to fold out, but it was the best or the easiest way to attach them. Plus, do you know how sometimes it's a pain in pegboard when you've got some kind of a fitting, maybe something custom, and you're trying to get it to stay put? When you pull the tools off, it comes loose. Well, I have access to the back. So that means I can go in here, and sometimes I'm just putting wood blocks that things screw into. Sometimes I can just create a way to lock a hanger in place. So having access to the back of pegboards turns out to be really nice. There are categories of materials, but the primary revolution, change is that very few of my tools are tucked away in drawers. They are all out in this space. Now I'll give you a brief tour of what's actually hanging on these. The Incra pieces that work as a fence on the table. All kinds of vacuum parts, saws, blades, various jigs. When I make a custom jig, I've got big flat spaces I can hang it. Pipe cutters, clamps of all sorts. Miscellaneous jigs, circle cutting jigs. All my router bits, so they're not in a box anymore. They're hung out here. Wrenches, miscellaneous wrenches and tools, squares, a whole variety of battery-powered tools, clamp on straight edges and levels. So these are actually cutting guides, clamp-on cutting guides. Custom parts that are part of the crosscut sled, bungees, miscellaneous stuff, hanging equipment, things for the boards, T-track, and last and not least, my crosscut sled. The crosscut sled will get its own short video, and when I switch to the table, it'll be one of the pieces of equipment that I show how it gets moved out, used, put away. Shoebox style bins, that are my main way of storing materials of all sorts. So there's bins for drill bits, bins for specialized drill bits, bins for files, bins for chisels, bins for electrical equipment. So both sides are just loaded with bins. They're stacked 2 or 3 tall. I can grab a stack and bring it down. It's a pain, but it's necessary in a shop this small. You can't have things immediately accessible and possibly get all the tools into this space. Conventional drill press, this is the Nova Viking. It's not the full floor model, it's on a stand I built. A small bandsaw, at some point this will be replaced. Custom cyclone separator. It sits on top of not quite a 50 gallon, I think it's a 30 gallon barrel. It works so well that in the 10 years I've been using this setup, 10 years since I made that separator, it evacuates to the outside, and the dust bag, which is a well-filtering dust bag that's designed to allow you to have it inside the shop and filter the air, it's never had anything in it. Every couple of years I look, and there's nothing in it. Of course, the cyclone separator drops all the dust into there, and that's got to get emptied every once in a while. Belt sander, various shelves that have tools or bars that are stored on the pegboards for clamping wood pieces and things. So there's little bits of miscellaneous things stored all over. The extendable hose to get the dust evacuation to any of the tools lives on a horizontal surface on this wall. So when I took over the end of the room with all of these pegboard, I created this shelf. I built it very strong, and so this is just a heavy-duty structure. Below are all of the tools, not all of the tools, but a bunch of the heavy mechanisms, tools that come out under the table periodically. The most prominent probably is the DeWalt planer, a vise. And again, when I'm working with a table more, I'll show that, a grinder. So these things get pulled out and put up there, but this space right here was important and was designed intentionally. It's deep enough that if I'm pulling down, in this case, Forstner bits, and working with them, I can slip it there. More functionally and more importantly, when I'm working with lots of pieces of wood and I'm going to be planing it and there's multiple stages, this is an area where the wood can go. So you get this entirely cleared out, and then that's a shelf where things can be slid, pulled out, slid, put back and back away. The table has a similar structure built into it, which is there's a shelf here quite intentionally. The goal is to make it that if you're working with some tools, you don't do that very often, leaving them in the way, but you can just put them down there and keep the surface clearer, more clear as you work. Shelves in the corners, power in the ceiling. The table has power, so I've used this probably 2 times since I put it in. Construction project, not one that I was involved in the construction, but knew the people it was being built for. It arrived broken, it's getting tossed, and what that gives me is a cabinet for some things I want to grab very quickly and keep them completely dust-free. So for example, my dust mask is in there. I don't have to put it away in a bin. I can just grab it. Eye wash, bandages, things like that. It was available. I've made good use of it. The room also has a very minimal, very low power ability to slightly heat itself. It holds its temperature quite well in the winter and stays pretty cool in the summer. And then I've got small humidifier and dehumidifier. The end result is that I keep this room between 50 degrees and 80 degrees Fahrenheit year-round and at 50% relative humidity year-round, which makes working with materials in this space much easier than it would be if things were fluctuating wildly. Air filtration for internal circulation, as well as, of course, the external exhaust. The air in the shop can circulate through that fan. Okay, next up is a similar overview video about the table. Please subscribe, and thanks for watching.